And welcome back to another daily devotion. I am Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Wednesday, June 5th of 2024. We're going right through this month of June, aren't we? And we're going right through the book of Galatians. We're at the end of the first chapter already. We're going to look at verses 18 to 24 today. This will finish up the section that the Revised Standard Version, which is what I typically use for these studies because I like the RSV for some reason. The RSV calls this section from 11 to 24 Paul's vindication of his apostleship. He's pointing out, who he is, why he is, where his apostleship came from. We left off with him saying that he did not, after his conversion, he did not immediately go to Jerusalem and meet with the other apostles. In fact, he did not confer with any flesh and blood. He simply conferred with the Lord. He had a vision, a miraculous appearance of the Lord to him on that road to Damascus. But instead, he went into Arabia and then to return to Damascus after that. So, verse 18, it says, then after 3 years, that's probably almost certainly, there's debate about it, of course, there's debate about everything in Scripture. Almost certainly that's 3 years after the road to Damascus experience, the conversion experience. That after 3 years, finally, he goes to Jerusalem. So let's pick up at verse 18, go through 24, and we'll talk about it some more. Galatians chapter 1, 18 to 24. Then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas and remained with him 15 days. But I saw none of the other apostles except James, the Lord's brother. In what I am writing to you before God, I do not lie. Then I went into the regions of Syria and Cilicia, and I was still not known by sight to the churches of Christ in Judea. They only heard it said, he who once persecuted us is now preaching the faith he once tried to destroy. And they glorified God because of me. Okay, so after 3 years, he goes to Jerusalem. This is his first trip to Jerusalem after the conversion, his first trip to Jerusalem as a Christian missionary, if you will, or the Jewish sect of Christianity anyway, as we've talked about before. At this point, Christianity is not its own thing yet. It still exists within the auspices, if you will, of Judaism. It's a sect of Judaism. The newest sect, there's about three dozen sects at this time. Those, of course, as we talked about, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, disappear after the destruction of the temple because many of them were killed and the synagogues were out in the diaspora. But I digress. Let's get back to this study for today. So he then goes to Jerusalem to visit Peter and James, the brother of Jesus. Jesus' brother, James the Just, who I believe was the leader of the first church, based off of Acts with the Jerusalem Council. But this is not the visit for the Jerusalem Council because he's not going to talk to anybody else. He just sees these two guys. He's there for 15 days, and these are the only guys he sees, which is kind of strange, but that's what happened. So he's there for 15 days, and then he heads on off to Syria and Cilicia. So he says, and I was still not known by sight to the churches of Christ in Judea. Well, because he didn't visit with anybody except for Peter and James. So they knew him, but the churches did not know him by sight. But they have heard that this guy that once was out to get us was our chief, the chief prosecutor or persecutor of the church, has now become the church's greatest advocate. He ultimately becomes the primary advocate of the church. If it weren't for Paul and Paul's teachings and the people that were disciples of Paul, we wouldn't have most of the New Testament. Almost all of the New Testament is either written by Paul or it's written by people that Paul had influence over, right down the line. So a great deal of the New Testament is Pauline. That we just have to realize that. If it weren't for Paul, Christianity wouldn't have survived if Paul had not been converted. But as we talked about yesterday, he was selected. God had a plan. Even before he knew what was going on, even in his womb, he was formed to be ultimately the greatest of all of the disciples. He was the greatest of them, of all the apostles. Okay. What can we learn from this? Well, oftentimes we can look at ourselves and say, I'm just a sinner. And you are. So am I. We're all sinners. So is Paul. Remember in Romans, that what I don't want to do, I do. And what I do want to do, I don't do it. For pity's sakes, what's wrong with me? We all have those moments. Some of us a lot more moments than others. But we still, all of us, no matter who you are, no matter who you are or how righteous you are, all of us have those moments where it's like, why did I do that? Why did I let that thought be entertained into my skull? But he talks about here that he's the least likely. He who once persecuted us is now preaching the faith he once tried to destroy. It just goes to show that God will use and can use and does use the most unlikely people. Paul was certainly not someone that they would have thought was going to become the greatest apostle. They thought he was going to destroy the movement. I can relate to that in my own walk with Christ, in my own path towards being a minister, doing this YouTube channel and pastoring the church here. Though I don't have a big following on this YouTube channel, much to the frustration of my children who are like, Dad, you need to do more of this and this and this market. And it's like, I just don't know how to do that stuff. And I don't really have a desire to do that. I tried to hire my daughter to push the channel more, but I digress again. But nonetheless, those that knew me in my younger years, 35, 40, 50 years ago, would be extremely surprised that here I am on the internet preaching and teaching and advocating for Christ, as I certainly was no angel and certainly was no Christian. Not the least of those who would be shocked would be my ex-wife. I'm certain that when she saw that I had become a minister, she probably nearly swallowed her tongue. But I do remember, and I've told the story before, I remember back in 1982, after having graduated from college and trying to find work. And if you are old like me and you lived through the 80s, in 1982, there weren't many jobs to be had. And so it was a struggle to find employment. She didn't want to stay on the ranch, and so we left that lifestyle behind, much to my dismay at times. But at any rate, as I'm trying to find jobs, I remember the minister that performed the wedding and was at the church that her mother went to. He was a great Lutheran minister. He was a wonderful guy. He said to my ex-mother-in-law one time, well, Roy's looking for work. Well, has he thought about going to seminary? Oh my gosh, everybody got quite a chuckle out of that. But I do think about that sometimes and wonder, what did that old pastor see that I didn't see at that time? And certainly absolutely nobody else saw at that time. And certainly when Paul was holding the robes of those that were stoning Stephen, they wouldn't have been thinking, this guy, he's going to be the next great thing in this movement. By the way, we're stoning this guy from that movement over here. But this guy holding our coats while we're doing so, he's going to be the next. He's going to be the next best thing, the big deal. They wouldn't have thought that at all. You don't know. We don't know. Never sell yourself short. No matter where you're at in life, no matter what your abilities or inabilities may be, your talents or your lack thereof, your disabilities, or as I said, whether they be physical or what have you, God can use you and He will use you if you just are willing to be used and to accept the call. So please accept the call. If you're feeling called to do something in some way, even if it's just going around and telling people God bless you, you can be a advocate for the Lord in a very low pressure way. One of the things I like to do is if I go through a drive-through to get coffee or what have you, I'm being bad to drinking coffee today. I'm trying to kick the habit, but nonetheless, I will tell people, have a blessed day. Or go to the store, go through the checkout, tell the cashier, thank you very much. Have a blessed day. God bless you. Those just little witnesses like that can make a big difference, because you'd be surprised the number of times people's face just light up. They're like, wow, I'm used to having people complain to me about stuff, yell at me about stuff. People that work in those kind of jobs sometimes have to endure an awful lot of, abuse at the hands of people. If you're going out to eat, your waitress or waiter, give them a blessing when you leave, and thank them for their service, serving you, and tell them God bless you. Be an advocate for the Lord in large ways and small. That's all I've got for you today. If you enjoy these devotions, please like and subscribe. But most importantly, come on back again. Feel free to share these videos. I would love for your help to grow the channel, as my children would be much happier if I had a larger channel than I do. Again, they see all the videos I have and they go, wow, you need to step it up. I just don't. That's not my thing. So at any rate, help by sharing the videos, help by liking, help by subscribing. God bless you. Be a blessing to someone today. God loves you. Take care. Bye-bye.